everyone, this is going to be a quick video talking to you about why it is that the saya is longer than the blade. And the reason for this is very simple. It's because when this sword is worn in an obi, obviously it would have oil on it, but moisture could get on the blade if you use it. Maybe it's raining. Generally speaking, you would wipe the blood off the blade before putting it away. But moisture can get on the blade. Maybe a little bit of rainwater gets in the saya, and now you have moisture in your saya. Generally speaking, if moisture gets in the saya, that saya is trash. You really can't do much with it after that. But the reason why the saya is longer is so that should moisture be traveling down this way, it will not sit and collect at your kisaki. The saya is a little bit longer, so it can collect down here while your kisaki isn't touched by the moisture. On a lot of swords, the saya is a little bit longer than what is typical. Generally speaking, the saya should be about an inch longer than the blade. This one here, as you can see, is about 3 inches or more longer than the blade. And that doesn't really hurt anything. It doesn't matter. It's longer than the blade, and that's fine. Technically speaking, that might actually be advantageous because it gives you a little bit more room for error. However, generally speaking, about an inch longer than the blade is what's traditional. The space that's actually for collecting the moisture is generally a little reservoir. It's not the width of the blade. It's about half the width of the blade, and it extends maybe an inch. Then you have, of course, a little bit of wood past that, and then your kojiri goes on. On a lot of mass-produced blades like this one, they don't do the reservoir. They just make the channel that's carved for the blade longer. And basically, it serves the same basic function. It's not as precise, but for mass production, it's quicker, it's easier, still does the same task. A saya can be shortened if it's too long. On a saya like this one, which as you can see has a metal kojiri, what can be done is, generally speaking, these are glued on, but you might be able to work it off. So you get it off. You make sure that the saya itself is still an inch longer than the blade. Cut it. Now, of course, you want that cut to be as even as possible, but luckily with something like a kojiri like this, it tends to cover up mistakes a little bit more. Then from there, you put the kojiri back on, glue it on, and it's finished. With a saya like this one here, it's a bit more difficult, and this one here I did end up shortening. But this one here didn't have a horn kojiri on it. It was just wood, so I ended up shortening the saya, and then I put a horn kojiri on it to cover up the hole. Now, one thing to me about the length of a saya is, honestly, most of the time, as long as the inside of the saya is an inch longer than the blade, which most of them are, it doesn't bother me. On a sword like this one right here, I already showed you that the saya is about 3 inches longer than the blade, but it doesn't bother me, because when putting this sword in my obi, I don't have a problem putting the sword in my obi. Even on a sword like this one right here, the fact that the saya is longer than it should be doesn't bother me, because once again, when putting this sword in my obi, it's not a problem. And it's also not a problem for me with this sword because I do have a sword that the saya is actually longer than this one. This sword right here, out of all my swords, has the longest saya. Now this sword right here, as I said, I have shortened the saya a little bit for 2 reasons. Number one, it's easier to transport a sword with a saya that's a little bit shorter, and as you can see, this is a long sword. So on this sword, shortening up the saya just a little bit makes it easier to transport this sword. Between that and shortening the ska down as far as I did, it makes this sword very easy to transport in a car. Also, with this sword, because of the length, it just makes it easier to get into my obi with the saya this length rather than when it was longer. And when it was longer, it was between 1.5 inches and 2 inches longer. So that's pretty much it. That is the reason why the saya is longer than the blade, and also talking about how much longer the saya should be. As I said, If the saya is longer than an inch longer than the blade, don't worry about it too much. If you have trouble transporting the sword, like something like this, or maybe you have problems getting the sword into your obi, then maybe you should worry about it. But other than that, I wouldn't worry about it too much. And if you do have a sword that you feel that the saya needs shortening just a little bit, contact me. I have a website. It's www.studentofwarcustoms.com, and I do sword repair and customizing for a price. So check out my website. If the service you're looking for isn't listed there, email me at novothadam@yahoo.com, or you could write in the comments section and I will get back to you. However, if you want a saya shortened, then I will have to know lengths of the saya as is compared to the blade for obvious reasons. So that's pretty much it. I hope this was helpful and informative. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'll see you next video. See ya.